Dee and Bill, there's something we touched on in the last segment that I want to expand on a little bit. And Dee, it was something that you said, this idea that if I approach this issue as saying, well, I want more people to be religious, and I think that's good for society. But then you, I think, appropriately said, well, but there's sort of a broader thing we're trying to do. There's a different thing we're trying to do with this survey data, which is there are a lot of people out there in the United States that are not currently religious in terms of like theological belief or participation in a faith institution. And what this survey data shows us is that even if they are not going to, per se, participate in a faith institution, we can still persuade them to support the existence of faith institutions as playing a role in public life and being deserving of religious freedom protections. So can you expand on that a little bit, that if for me or other leaders, how do we operationalize that? What should we be saying?
I think this is a big kind of, kind of the importance of what we're talking about here. Not in this study, but in many studies that we've done and others, there is a huge lack of institutional trust. We don't trust our institutions that have led us in society. That includes our Congress, our elected officials, etc. And it seems from the data we have here that people overwhelmingly believe that faith and religious institutions play these fundamental roles. So by that belief, it is inherent that there is a trust. So I look at this in the context of, if there's this existing trust in faith to provide disaster relief, security for those in need, and other types of social services, why doesn't government and our community leaders more actively work to partner with faith-based organizations in the providing of these services? The structures are there, the trust is there, and I think they can have a very significant impact in those types of things that are needed.
Bill, I want to ask you, if I have a hypothetical conversation with somebody, if they ask, Nick, why are you a member of your religious faith? Why do you like that? Why do you think it's good? I think it's common, sort of the common response for a member of a church or a faith organization is to sort of speak to the personal, the spiritual. It helps me feel connected with God and a more loving husband and father, those kinds of very personal theological, I would make a spiritual argument for religion if somebody asked me, well, Nick, why are you in it? Why do you think it's good? Should I do less of that and do more of, look at all the good that churches do for, as Dee is saying, for disaster relief, for housing the homeless, for healthcare, stuff that you've written on extensively. Do I need to be better at articulating those points if my goal is to increase support and respect for faith institutions?
I don't think the answer is to necessarily do less, but to make sure that you do get eventually to that point. Partially, one of the reasons that religion plays the powerful role it does is that it's not just an instrumental value. It's not just a way to try and convince people to do things they otherwise wouldn't do. It really does spring up from the commitment within a person that comes because, like Dee described earlier, from a true conviction. And you can't just duplicate that in some other way. It's almost magical in a way. Maybe that's probably the wrong word to say, but that a sincere belief that someone has can affect them in such a way as that they're those around them are affected as well. And I think that may be the way to describe that, to say here, why I personally believe what I do is this, and the experiences I've had and what I've come to feel or know is true. And it's, as a result, one of the things I see in my own life and I see in people around me in my faith community is the following. And I love what Dee said. I really can't say enough good about the work that he and his colleagues did on this survey. It's really, really helpful, very well constructed, and gives us great data. And I loved his point that one of the things that we can take from this is that the next thing after you've made that explanation is to say, and because of my faith, I really care deeply about these things, which I think you care about as well. And I bet we could work together in a way that would really make a difference in our community. Or, I think that's probably maybe one of the things that stood out to me most in this. Well, a lot of things stood out to me in this report. It really was well done. Again, the survey was well constructed, but I think that's an important take-home message, that there's a lot more work that can be done with collaboration based on what we know here.
Nick, let me add to that. often you learn things that you can do, but in this case, we also learn some things you shouldn't do, particularly with the nuns. It turns if you're not a religiously affiliated person, it really is a turnoff to tell them that religion is going to make them happier or a better person. That's just kind of a non-starter for them. And it's a lot better if instead of that, because it's a judgment on them as a person to start with, just to state the obvious. Instead of that, if we talk about how what Bill just said, how we can work together to make things better in our community, and then we are actively engaging in that, we're showing by our actions that same kind of thought of that faith can make not just you, but our entire society and our community better. And that's just a much more effective way, and it doesn't start with a turnoff.
That's really compelling to me, because I'm grappling with this a little bit. I'll be honest, because I think, okay, my religious faith, it does make me happier and a better person. And if I do think, well, for someone else, it would make them a happier and better person. So I'm kind of sorting through that. But to your point, this idea of, I think of something Yuval Levin has said often, AEI scholar, friend of Sutherland, and just an amazing national voice on the importance of institutions and the Constitution. His latest book is all about the Constitution. And maybe in this divided age, as the report says, the title is talking about religion in a secular age, that we need to be better at, we need to dial up our skill set at talking about how religion, how faith institutions can be part of the civic ecosystem that we're all part of. And the way Yuval Levin describes it is, and Bill, you might be able to correct me on this, it's something along the lines of acting together even when you disagree. So thinking differently, but acting together. Maybe this survey kind of gives us a roadmap, Dee, that if you're an elected leader, a religious leader, just a parent, just a person, to think, well, at the end of the day, yes, we want anyone who wants to be part of a faith institution and talk about its benefits, we need them to have the freedom to do that. But societally, it's just fundamentally good for faith to be a part of life and to have religious freedom protections and to work together with other people to feed the poor, address homelessness, disaster relief, education, healthcare. Can you boil that down into maybe a script, if you will? If I'm talking to somebody who's in this religious nun category and they're kind of skeptical of religion, and my goal is to persuade them that faith is a good thing for society, what are some specific messages that I should say to them to make them think, oh, okay, like I may not believe still, but I respect and appreciate what faith does? What can I say?
Another thing to just kind of contextualize this is part of the reason that there's nearly half the people who think that religion is bad for our society is because of the divisiveness that it creates, the judgment of I'm better than you, or this religion's better than that religion, etc. If in its place, we are working collaboratively with faith groups and other folks to do the things that our society needs, it sends the complete opposite message. That we are the ones solving the problems, working together, overcoming differences, things that our society is hungry for, or who's modeling those kinds of behaviors. And so in my mind, that's where we are, as we get into active, work with those that are different than us and doing the things that we share in common, which are many, to help make a bigger difference in society. That's how we spread the message that faith is good in our society.
And maybe if I can just add one thing, one of the most important messages, I know I've said this about other things too, so there's a lot of important messages here, but one that really I think is a source of great hope is that as people understand what Dee just described, they significantly change their opinions about what religion does for society. They become much more open to the characterization of religion as a good for society, as a good for communities. So what Dee described is exactly right and will work. That's one of the things that we learned from this project.
And Dee, if I can give you the last word, that's essentially one of the biggest takeaways to me from this survey data is that there are specific facts and evidence that we can articulate that will elevate people's understanding of the societal good across all these domains: disaster relief, helping the poor and homeless, healthcare, education. I mean, all kinds of things that when they understand some of the statistics and just irrefutable evidence on those things, it does literally shift their perception of religion and public life. Any final thoughts on that being a really important takeaway from this that we can then use?
It's not in the nature of religious institutions to toot their own horn. That's just not in the nature of them. So it's largely up to people of faith to get involved doing these things in their own lives and in sharing those stories and those successes with a broader and broader circle. So that's just kind of one additional point on there.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.